Well, hello everyone. Just thought I'd pop in today and see if there's anyone around who might have a question before we get into the 10 o'clock mentoring lounge with the international mentoring community. So does anyone have a question, or we can just be here quiet and I'll watch the cat and just enjoy myself from that perspective. So anything going on out there that you want to have a quick chat about? Oh, someone just actually sent me a message, not through chat. Also, oh, okay. Yes, John, what we're going to do is have a conversation about certification and verification today. It's sort of an overview if you want to take a look at it. So that's what we're going to cover today. The answer is yes. I will be explaining the different certification levels as well. Now, anything else going on in your great lives? Oh, messages are coming in different ways. Oh, well, Doug's not joining us today, my co-host, and he just sent me a message that his book that he just published, You Are Not Alone, actually reached #1 on Amazon. Isn't that great? So we'll have him talk about that the next time we get together. So yeah, anything else going on? Jing, I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Can you just rephrase it for me so I can get a sense of where you're coming from? Yeah, the question, I see where you're going. Okay. To certify or not to certify, I think that's where you're coming from. So I'll cover off that a little bit as well today. We're getting close to startup time for the mentoring lounge. Yeah, it was great dropping in here and visiting with a couple of you. So wonderful. Thank you. We'll, maybe I'll do that again next time. Well, we're coming up on the start of the hour. And the clock has just ticked through. So certification, verification, two elements of awarding certificates and through the international mentoring community. And today what I wanted to do is just cover off the different certificates that are available through IMC, the international entity, and the process used. It's an audit verify process under the banner of verification. And I wanted to go over it. But one of the questions that keeps coming forward is, do you have to certify as a mentor? And I'm going to cover off that one as well, because it's an interesting question in today's world. And I have a couple of perspectives that I'd like to offer to you. So that's where we're going today. And so welcome to the International Mentoring Community Mentoring Lounge, which is on the first and third Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. And we're into our today's presentation. We find ourselves on January the 19th, 2022. So welcome aboard. And Doug Lawrence, the co-founder of the IMC and co-host of this lounge, is not available today. He is actually in deep practice, in other words, he's mentoring, and he wasn't going to be able to get to the call today. And instead of rushing around, I said, look, I'll take care of it today. And so we're going to cover off the story of the certification and verification. But in the opening, I came in a few minutes early today. I just got a message from Doug, is that his book, You Are Not Alone, actually reached #1 status on Amazon. yesterday. So congratulations to him. And our next mentoring lounge, we'll get him to talk a little bit more about the book if you don't know anything about it. But if not, certainly go to Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, and look up Doug Lawrence. You are not alone. And purchase the book. I think it's great. I had a chance to read it, provided one of the testimonials for the book, and that was a no-brainer on my part. Doug's a great guy and very deep into his practice. We use words here at IMC, richer, and he's certainly one who has gone into that. And speaking of deeper and richer, why don't we jump into this whole story of certification and verification, and what does it mean from an IMC perspective? So let me tackle that first question that keeps coming up: is it important to certify or not as a mentor, as a coach, whatever area that you might be going after your certification? My answer is actually twofold. If you are someone who's just starting off, and I'm just going to use mentoring today, I don't want to speak on coaching associations or others who are offering certification in that neck of the woods. From a mentoring point of view, if you're starting off into your practice, I would encourage you to go the pathway of certification, even if it's only to get a rudimentary basis platform, if you will, to be able to stand on as you go about doing your mentoring. Because it does is it clarifies points for you so that you don't, I'll use the phrasing, don't get lost in the mentoring. Now, if you're someone who has a practice of mentoring and you've got your own logbook and you're keeping track of what's going on, it's sort of either way sort of answer is I would still encourage you to get the certification because what it does is it consolidates, it brings your evidence together, and then get the recognition that goes with it. However, you don't have to have certification. And yet, I believe that the world is moving towards a bit more of this certification process and the awarding of certificates because they're of great value, because of this continuous learning approach, this open up the educating approach using the internet, and to have the certificates to go with that. And it doesn't always have to come from a university or college, because there is the deep practice, the day-to-day element that you can pick up certification if the body that you're going to interact with has that credibility. And that's where I want to go with today's mentoring lounge, is just share a little bit about our background at IMC to back up what I've shared. So again, from a summary point of view, if you are new to mentoring, then I would encourage you to go through a certification process. If you're someone who has a deep practice, it's sort of both ways. And I would certainly encourage you to get the recognition, yet you don't need it at this point in time. And you'll notice my phrasing there. So from a certification point of view, a certificate is a way of recognizing accomplishments with others and achievements for self that brings together this recognition component from an external body of what you have learned, what you know, what you are applying, so that you have sort of like a yardstick or stepping stones that you can turn to show to people that you have this deeper, richer knowledge and practice. And the international mentoring community offers certificates to those who are in the mentoring world. And I'm going to go through each one of those. And then I'm just going to top it up by explaining about what it means to audit and verify, and to be able to use those tools when we award certificates through the international mentoring community. So we have 4 certificates at IMC, and the first one is the Certificate of Recognition. And this is we could call it the entry level, where you can get started if you're new to it. And what it does is it at probably 30 of the action outcomes. You may know a phrase like competency statement. We use the word action outcome because there's an action verb and the outcome that is attributed to that action. Something like demonstrate ethical decision making, demonstrate responsive listening, discuss the importance of mentoring to a mentee from a mentor's perspective. These statements, because what we're able to do is ask you the question, are you competent at action verb outcome? That's where we're moving this forward. So with the certificate of recognition, it's very much from 30 of the 70 so action outcome statements and being able to gain an understanding of mentoring. It's not a full understanding of the knowledge. It's certainly not into the deeper skills. Do you know about mentoring so you can make an informed decision about going for certification, the other levels of certification? We usually encourage that for those who are just stepping into the world of mentoring, because it's important to be able to understand what mentoring is about. And we also offer in that certificate of recognition insights about the connection between mentoring and coaching and mentoring and facilitating. So it gives you a rounded perspective of what's available. And we use a verbal audit to be able to assign that certificate. So what I mean by verbal audit is that you have a conversation with one of the auditors, and it's verbal. It's there's some base documentation you would send in, but it's really to have a conversation with the person to be able to find out if you do know what you, and if you might have some questions, we could answer them at that point in time. It's sort of like coaching, but it's not. We prefer the term auditing because it's really a conversation to confirm that you have got a depth of insight, depth of knowledge about mentoring. The next one is the Certificate of Achievement. Now, this is an interesting one, is because what we're looking at here is, do you have the full knowledge of what it means to be a mentor, to engage in mentoring? So it's not about going into the practices of mentoring, but you as a mentor, do you have a deep understanding of what it means to mentor? So it's very much a knowledge-based approach to the certificate. And with this one, we use a written audit. In other words, you are going to collect evidence about your knowledge, and you'll submit some of that to us, and then we would have a written audit of what you presented. And often what it is just doing a review to see if you're making connections between the different action outcome statements, the 70 or so action outcome statements about mentoring. Now, what's interesting here is that this written audit is that we have the opportunity, if there is a bit of a hole in what your understanding, your knowledge about mentoring, we can have a quick exchange of emails and just clear up that component. Now, you can go from the certificate of recognition into the certificate of achievement. You can go straight into the certificate of achievement. Either way is possible. Now, the other thing about the certificate of achievement is you do get some insights into a couple of the practices, like, for example, the importance of managing a log book. Because if you are going to go on to the certificate, the next level certificate, then you will need log entries. In other words, you will have done some mentoring with a mentee that you can show that you have put into practice your knowledge about mentoring. Now, what becomes really interesting here is that you go on to the next certificate, which is the certificate of competence as a mentor. Now, in IMC, just to be totally transparent and clear, is that you can go straight into a certificate of competence. You don't have to go through the recognition and achievement. Some people do. Some people, because they have evidence already, they have built it up, they have experience in mentoring, then go into the certificate of competence, and that's available to you as well. And we are not ones who are saying this is the only place you can get education. In other words, while IMC has a library of educational material and resources for you, what we're attempting to do here is bring your understanding of mentoring forward so that when we go to do the audit verification, we can sort of ascertain, do you have the basic understanding from a knowledge and practice point of view? And as you move into the certificate of competence, it's now knowledge, skills, and definitely this notion of attitude, like things like rapport and confidence. Because when we go to do the confirmation through verification, in other words, we're going to verify it, we have a verifier who will work with you to actually confirm, verify that you have the knowledge and skills. And that would come through looking at case reviews that are given to you, also your evidence monitoring book without breaking confidentiality, and to be able to meet with the verifier to go over how you are connecting it and how are you using the knowledge in your application and bringing the full story forward. So it has an evidence-based learning element to it, but we're using techniques that are experience-based educating so the verifier can be with you. Now, the verifier that is joining you may have a couple of committee members because the verifier may need someone else to come in. Now, some verifiers are actually going to become, they're not at this point in time, competent as a certificate of mentor and a certificate of competence verifier. So they'll be able to sit with you and have that conversation. That's sort of where we're moving towards. But at the moment, we use the committee structure, verifier, and a couple of other people who are present, and they're going through to confirm your competence with the knowledge, skills, and the attitude aspect. Now, the fourth certificate that's available is what's called the Certificate of Journey Mentor. It's Certificate of Competence Journey Mentor. And we decided at IMC not to use a term like master mentor and that sort of way of looking at it. We decided it was a journey mentor. So the journey mentor is someone who can journey with someone who's going through the certification process. That was one of the reasons that we're doing it, because from a certificate of competence point of view, you may need someone to journey with you to pull your ideas together, to have someone to chat with, to explore what it means to be a mentor and dig it out of yourself with someone who's knowledgeable, those insights. And that's where a journey mentor is available to you. And we have a person like that in IMC who can be assigned to you. There's a cost involved, but assigned to you to be able to give you that guidance. And again, you could go through a certificate of competence mentor, get into certificate of competence journey mentor, and that could be a role you play in IMC as well. Now, you know that Doug Lawrence, who's the co-founder, looked at the journey mentor certification, says, would it be possible if that journey mentor could also be aligned with mentoring in the mental health area, not as a counselor or someone helping someone to shift or to become an instructor of techniques or anything like that, or a trainer, not from that perspective, but to be there from a conversational, collaborative conversational perspective to sort of fill in a little bit of the missing pieces in the world of mental health. And I'm going to say not from a counselor point of view, from a mentor point of view, where the person who is in conversation with the mentor can ask questions, and the mentor can guide that person forward and suggest places that they might be able to go and get assistance. And that's what Doug is growing with the certificate of Journey Mentor. And I think it's great what he's doing, and we'll be bringing that forward. But again, the certificate of Journey Mentor, the prerequisite is the certificate of competence. Now, again, just to remind you, you do not have a prerequisite for certificate of recognition. There is no prerequisite for the certificate of achievement, and there's no prerequisite for the certificate of competence mentor. Now, if you want to do any of those, you just get a hold of us and we can take you through that. Go to the website and there is an application process that you can go through. But the certificate of Journey Mentor does have the certificate of competence mentor. And the certificate of comp actually has a recertification process every 2 years that goes with it. And also the Journey Mentor has the 2 years. And there's, I wouldn't say a but, and there's an and there. Once you go through your certificate of Journey Mentor, certificate competence Journey Mentor, it will take your certificate of competence over. So you're only going after the one because one is nested inside the other. Now, what becomes important here, again, is this verification for Journey Mentor, the certificate of competence Journey Mentor. And what you're doing is you're just taking a deeper and richer look at the notion of mentoring and to being able to see how that mentor can be of value within IMC or in the mental health area. And maybe there are other areas. And again, that's the conversation we would have through the verification process. Now, I need to be super clear here, is that we are certifying through the audit and verification against the action outcomes of the profile of the certificate. We are not saying is that you are competent in the domain of knowledge and skills that you may be chatting with, talking about, sharing with the mentee, the learner, the protege. That we're not doing it from that perspective. It's about the knowledge and skills and attitude necessary to be engaged in mentoring, understand mentorship, and what it means to serve as a mentor. So that's the important element of the certification and the use of the verification. Now, there's a couple of things I'd also like to just add to this, to, in a sense, from a credibility, to understand where we're coming from, how we're going about doing this from an international mentoring community perspective. The verification process that we're using is actually leaning against the world of ISO, the International Standards Organization, from the perspective of an education organization. There is an ISO standard for that, the quality management standard, but also regulations about conformity assessment, what we call competence verification. So we've leaned into that ISO world up against those standards and regulations. And we are in the process of working towards getting those ISO standards and those regulations met. It takes a bit of time to do, but again, we are committed to moving forward to get that. That doesn't mean the certification that you get as a mentor is ISO certificate. That, again, I want to be crystal clear. It's just we're leaning as an organization, right, to get accredited with these ISO standards and regulations. That's where we're coming from. The other thing that we did was that we at this from the perspective of an environmental, occupational health and safety perspective, because in Canada, we linked it up to the criminal code, because something I learned about years ago was about the Westray mine incident and how it influenced occupational health and safety, environmental occupational health and safety considerations, is that if in the training of someone, in the getting them to become a better employee, if incorrect information or lack of information or lack of skills is given to the person and they get hurt, then whoever is the manager or whoever is the educator trainer, it can be tracked back as if they were the cause of the injury or illness. Then there was a possibility of criminal code activity, occupational health and safety, labor regulations being brought against that person. So knowing about that, I said, okay, the verification process that we're using, we brought it back against the Criminal Code of Canada because it's very clear that we want someone to understand is how we certify is not to have a person do harm to another or harm to self. And therefore, how to bring out this environmental, occupational health and safety perspective was tied to our verification process. Now, what we are able to do as well is that we can have conversations with those in other countries and have it brought to forward their understanding of environmental, occupational health and safety within their country, and to understand the importance of this ISO international standards and regulations that we're leaning up against. And I'll put a link to an article that was written that's in our blog on IMC that talks about it and gives you the sense of which standards and regulations we're interacting with, a reference to the Criminal Code of Canada. So again, we wanted to indicate that we are backing up what we're doing with some very credible sources, with an intention to do the best by you by what we know at the time. And therefore, our certification leans against those. The verification process is to confirm that you have the competence or the achievement, the recognition of the action outcome statements of the profile that you're working with. So what we're attempting to do here is to provide a safer place in which to be able to get your certification so that you have clarity. You have the ability to lean into the confidence of your mentoring, to be able to commit to your mentoring, to be able to show that the contributions you make through mentoring are of use and eventful for them, that you are co-creating the capacity with us. That's why we work under a community framework to be able to have this happen. So I wanted to go over the certification and the verification components. Again, if there's questions, you can put it into the comments section. I don't see any comments at this point in time. Also, you can go to the website and use the contact form, internationalmentorcommunity.com/contact. You can leave a question there. Again, where you find this video, it's actually in 3 places. One is on the Facebook page of the IMC. Another is the YouTube channel for IMC, and it's also being published on Wealth Learning TV as a 3rd spot. We are looking at other channels to bring this mentoring lounge to the foreground, but those are the 3 for this video. So there are multiple ways to get a hold of us to ask a question. And so to that, I remind you to subscribe, ring the bell, comment, like, and share so that we can learn from you, and also that you get notifications when we're up again. So this mentoring lounge is available on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. And you can certainly join us. And if you want to get involved in the chat function, it's possible. And maybe if you send a question ahead of time, we can get you on screen and we can have a conversation with you as well if you're up for that. Again, Doug will be joining us on our next mentoring lounge, and he'll give us an update on his book, You're Not Alone. Again, it's available at amazon.com, amazon.ca, the Amazon that you interact with, it should be there. So from that perspective, I don't see any questions at this point in time. So I think we've covered off what we need to. So again, just from a summary, is it mandatory or necessary, whatever phrasing you might be about getting a certificate if you're going to mentor? Again, if you're new to mentoring, I would suggest you get at least a certificate of recognition, if not work all your way through. If you have experience, again, you could go through and take the certificate to get recognition from an external group. Or obviously you can continue to do what you're doing, and best wishes to you. You can join the community if you want and be able to help us advance all things mentoring. And again, I wanted to go through the certificates that are available: certificate of recognition, certificate of achievement, certificate of competence, and the certificate of competence journey mentor. Those are available to you. Just go over a little bit about the audit verifier process that we use under the banner of competence verification that we have. And I think I've covered off what I wanted to today from a mentoring line of view, and we have broken the 30-minute component. So I think it's time to close off and say, hey, thanks, and enjoy yourself. And if there's anything, again, that we might be able to help you out with, I'm just going to check the chat. No, there's nothing there at this point in time. So with that, I wish you the best, and we'll see you on the next Mentoring Lounge. And may the gift of mentoring be with you as you enjoy your time with others. So take care.